Hi, my name is Christopher Height, and I write the blog Tom Payne's Ghost, taking the blog in a little bit different direction, more DIY, at least for the time being. So I'm going to talk to you today about how to sew on a button. Seems like a very simple thing, but there are a few little techniques that I've learned over the years that make the button last longer and make the buttoning process easier. Namely the shank, which I'll tell you about in a little bit. So we start with a button, a pair of pants that have lost the button, needle, and this is extra strong upholstery thread. So we start by taking about 2 feet of thread, cutting it, and you thread the needle. And in home economics class, I learned to just tie this off, but there's a better technique, which I learned from a little shop here in Fort Collins, Colorado, called Mama Said So, and that is to take the thread and kind of string it all the way through, and so you've got a double thread. Now I'm going to take the two ends and do this technique that I did learn in home economics, which was to kind of wrap your finger with the thread and then kind of roll the whole group of threads around each other a couple times, and then you pull it, and it should give you a nice tight knot at the back end of your double thread. Now, make sure you don't have any knots throughout the thread, otherwise it's going to be a nightmare getting it back and forth through the hole. Okay, so I've got a little bit of a messy knot here at the end. Just cut off the excess. Alright. Make that as tight as possible. Alright. Now, you want to hide that big knot, and the way you do that is you go through the front, kind of like this. So you go down through the front and then back up through, so that knot gets hidden behind the front of the button. So you got that big knot there. Now you can just slide the button right on there. There you go. Now align it to how you want to have it on your pants, and then kind of go down through the second button. I'm going to do a crisscross pattern, but I want to look and see where my thread came through on the back side and kind of poke my needle, even though it's through a diagonal button, as close to that initial stitch as possible. Okay, now there I go. There's my first. Now I'm going to go back through similarly close. I'm going to kind of look and see where that's coming through. Alright, now I'm going to go twice over. So now I have one cross, but I want to do a second cross, right? So you can kind of see where I went through on the first pass through. It's kind of difficult. Each time I'm kind of aiming like a bullseye towards the center of this button so that all my stitches are kind of in the same spot. Now, here comes the shank. So that's pretty flush, right? So the reason that you do the shank is so that when you button it to the other side, you have a little bit of literal wiggle room in between the button and what it's sewn to. And so the way you do this is, so now I'm on the back side. I'm going to go back up through, but I'm not going to go through any of the holes. I'm going to go back up through kind of close to all the, as close as possible to the previous stitches. Alright, now, see, I'm going to come up through, and here's what you do. You kind of loosen it a little, loosen all the threads a little bit, and you pass around the under bit. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's pretty good. Now, once you've gone around 4 times, you go back through the back side, and this is where you can do the tie off. So now see how that's elevated off of the surface like that? That's the shank. You've shanked the button. So now what do you do to end this? Alright, so all your threads should be, or your stitches should be tight together. Kind of go through your threads. I'm going to go through a couple times. Through your stitches on the back side. Just keep going. And then on your final one, you're going to have that loop, and you just tie it off one more time with a tie. And since I have a nice tight stitch grouping there, I'm going to go and tie it one more time for good measure. And then, with all that done, the knot as tight as I can get it, cut just a little bit left over. Scissors and sharpening there. Got a little bit left over, no problem. And let's see. Button shanked. Does it button? Did I button to the right side? Yes, indeedy. It's got some room underneath because it was shanked. All right, thanks for tuning in.